keep pounding. The Carolina Panthers are facing a major roster dilemma regarding a former first-round pick who hasn't lived up to the hype. While team leaders claim they have faith in his development, their recent moves suggest a completely different story. A massive roster shakeup is brewing, and it could change the trajectory of our receiving core for the 2026 season. Shout out to Marcus from Charlotte for asking about this situation. This is a critical development that every fan needs to track immediately. Make sure to hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss a Panthers update. At the center of this debate is Xavier Legette, the wide receiver who was originally envisioned as the team's future WR1. After the Carolina Panthers traded up into the first round during the 2024 NFL Draft to secure his services, expectations were sky high, yet his performance has been consistently underwhelming. Publicly, head coach Dave Canals and GM Dan Morgan maintain that Xavier Legette is going to figure it out, but their actual personnel transactions tell a much more aggressive story. The team's decision to draft Chris Brazzell II and sign John Mechie indicates that the organization is no longer content with waiting for a breakout that has failed to materialize across 2 full NFL seasons. While supporters point to his slow collegiate development as a reason for patience, the professional landscape is far less forgiving. Xavier Legette has shown very little on the field to suggest he is ready to take the next step in his career, and with the 2026 season now in full swing, the team must address this stagnant production. It is clear that the front office is actively looking to improve the depth chart, and Xavier Legette finds himself falling down the pecking order. He is currently fighting to remain relevant in a room that is rapidly evolving. The contradiction between the coach's public statements and the team's draft day actions has created a sense of urgency regarding his future with the franchise. As we analyze the roster composition, it becomes evident that the team is preparing for a new reality where Xavier Legette might not be a primary focus of the offensive strategy. This isn't just about poor stats. It is about the structural direction of the team's passing attack moving forward into the remainder of the current campaign. The narrative surrounding Xavier Legette has shifted dramatically, with Bleacher Report analyst Mo Moton officially suggesting that he is the primary candidate for a trade. It is difficult to argue against this logic when you look at the current depth chart. In 2026, Xavier Legette could potentially drop as low as the WR4 position, a disappointing reality for a player once pegged as a cornerstone of the offense. Mo Moton highlights that the presence of playmakers like Tataroa McMillan has rendered Xavier Legette redundant, as McMillan has immediately proven to be the impact player the team desperately needed. Furthermore, Jalen Coker, who entered the league as a 2024 undrafted free agent, has shown significantly more progression than Xavier Legette, despite both players dealing with various health issues. Coker has managed to make his presence felt throughout his 22 regular season games, contrasting sharply with the lack of production from Xavier Legette over his 31 appearances. The recent selection of Chris Brazzell II in the 3rd round serves as a direct message to the receiver room, as Brazzell offers a slightly taller and faster profile that mirrors what the team expected from Xavier Legette when he was drafted. Even if the coaching staff wants to believe in a turnaround, the statistical reality in a low-volume passing attack makes it increasingly improbable. Because the passing offense is not designed to support multiple high-volume receivers, Xavier Legette is unlikely to see the growth he needs while stuck behind more productive options like McMillan and Coker. The team is forced to ask if a player with such limited opportunities can truly develop, or if it is simply better to move on while he still possesses some residual value in the league. Why does this matter right now for the Panthers? The immediate impact is a logjam at the wide receiver position that prevents younger, more effective players from securing the targets they need. With Tataroa McMillan and Jalen Coker expected to dominate the target share, there is simply not enough volume to go around for a struggling veteran who hasn't produced. For the Carolina Panthers, every single offensive snap is vital as they try to establish a rhythm in 2026. If Xavier Legette remains on the roster but occupies a bench spot without contributing, the team is effectively wasting a roster space that could be utilized for depth or tactical versatility. This situation is particularly critical because the team has already identified alternatives like Chris Brazzell II. By holding on to a player who hasn't hit his stride, the organization potentially limits the development of these younger assets who have shown a higher ceiling. The team's passing efficiency is under a microscope, and they cannot afford to keep underperforming players if they want to remain competitive in their games. If the ball is not going the way of Xavier Legette, his path to improvement is effectively blocked. creating a lose-lose scenario for both the player and the franchise. A change of scenery is often cited as a solution for high pedigree players who fall short of expectations, and the current landscape suggests that a trade could be the most logical outcome for everyone involved. The organization has proven in the past that they are capable of navigating these kinds of roster transitions, and the pressure is mounting to make a definitive call on whether to keep him or seek compensation in a deal that clears the path for the rest of the receiving room. The strategic angle for the front office is clearly focused on maximizing the return on investment for assets that are not providing the expected dividends. Although it is acknowledged that the trade compensation for Xavier Legette will not be significant due to his failure to meet expectations, a trade remains a viable path forward. The Panthers have a proven history of successfully trading away disgruntled or underperforming wide receivers for decent value, and they should attempt to replicate that success here. Mo Mutton argues that the team can afford to part ways with him precisely because the arrival of players like Chris Brazzell II has rendered him expendable. The goal for GM Dan Morgan is likely to recoup some form of draft capital, which would be far more valuable to the team's long-term strategy than keeping a player who clearly isn't fitting into the current offensive scheme. While some might argue for further patience, the team's actions, specifically the heavy investment in new receivers, suggest that the internal assessment of Xavier Legette is likely more critical than the public messaging indicates. If he is not part of the long-term solution, keeping him on the roster does more harm than good. A trade would provide Xavier Legette with a fresh start, allowing him to play against NFL defenses in a system where he might find a better fit, while simultaneously allowing the Panthers to focus their resources on the development of McMillan, Coker, and Brazzell. This move would streamline the receiving room and remove the ambiguity that currently surrounds the depth chart. The logic is sound. If a player is not contributing to the immediate success of the team, the most efficient move is to exchange that player for assets that align with the team's ongoing goals. As we look at the remainder of the 2026 season, the question of Xavier Legette's future in Carolina remains the most significant looming decision for the front office. The organization has clearly signaled through its draft choices and free agent signings that it is ready to move beyond the experimental phase with its previous receiver acquisitions. While Dave Canales and Dan Morgan continue to defend their guy in public, the reality is that the Panthers have built a squad that is no longer dependent on his breakout. The shift toward utilizing players like Tetairoa McMillan and Chris Brazzell II shows a commitment to production over pedigree. If a trade partner is found, it will be the final step in closing the book on an unsuccessful experiment, allowing the team to move forward with a cohesive and productive unit. Whether they pull the trigger on a deal before the deadline or wait until the offseason, the writing appears to be on the wall. The team has done their due diligence by bringing in reinforcements, and now they must deal with the consequences of an overcrowded position room. Every game played without a productive contribution from a player in his position is a missed opportunity for the offense to find its identity. As fans, we have seen how quickly rosters can be optimized when management decides to cut ties with underperforming assets. Now that we have laid out the facts regarding his declining role and the team's aggressive approach to finding his replacements, we want to hear from you. Do you think the Panthers should trade Xavier Legette now for whatever draft capital they can get, or should they give him more time to prove himself? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.